Okay, folks. Hello, Sports Scope followers. After 5 years of doing this program once a week, balancing a 60-hour work week job, I've decided to do the program 5 days a week, 1 hour a night, taking a significant pay cut. So I've started a Patreon page, which is Patreon, Patreon/SportsScope, spelled the same way at the bottom of the screen you see there. For $5 a month, 17 cents a day, you can help support the program. You ask yourself, why Sports Scope? Well, I bring in such big names such as Al Borges, former Auburn offensive coordinator, and I cover the big news in sports that the corporate media will not cover. If you want to contribute more than $5 a month, you can go use the Cash App. The cash tag is Sports Scope, again spelled the same way. Or you can go to the Zelle app, sportscope@gmail.com. SportsScope has about 5,000 followers and growing. If you want to advertise on the program, you can email me. The word is SportsScope, spelled the same way again, @gmail.com. Thank you and enjoy the program. Okay, I am live here now on all links. I could not have synchronized that up any better. It is just about 5 o'clock Central Time here on this early edition. Again, this is only for this particular show because we have the double hitter on the Monday night. I mean, I haven't seen any other double hitters. I'll have to go back and check. But so I'm going to do the program here. A lot of people in the Nashville area and Buffalo area. Keith Engel out of Albany. I'm sure he's going to be watching the Bills. They're going to start this. And, of course, there's a double hitter, Philadelphia, playing against Minnesota. So, going to get into the Trey Lance situation. Going to get into the fight. This is part 2. Mike Evans, Marshawn Lattimore. I haven't got anything official yet, though, on Lattimore. I didn't see anything as far as any kind of fine. It looks like he might not be fined, and I'm just not too sure about that. Get into this Cowboys, what they really are and what they need to focus on going forward. But first, one thing after 2 weeks of watching NFL is there's basic fundamentals are still the same, whether it's 20 years ago, 20 days ago, in this case, 20 hours ago, that you still have to run the ball. You still have to create a running game, whether it be off left tackle, an option type like Arizona did effectively, like I've talked about before on this program. That was my biggest concern about Arizona with this Cliff Kingsbury offense. And Kyler Murray is giving the running back the football out of the shotgun like that. I just never. So you have to learn that. And it's still a passing league by a quarterback. And you have to get pressure on the opposing team's quarterback, like the Ravens against Tua. Ravens have a great defense, but they've lacked a pass rush the last few years, and we've seen this with Joe Burrow slicing and dicing that secondary up. Last year, Pro Football Focus had this team as the number 1 secondary coming in. But it doesn't look too good when you have a mediocre to bad pass rush. We saw that with Tua, okay? And no matter how teams dress it up, those are still the basics of winning. Other schemes that are experimented, like the spread, the wildcat, but always those are simply short-term methods that and teams always go back to running the ball, creating a running game, and it comes down to quarterbacks making throws out of the pocket. Okay? We've seen how many lead changes, how many comebacks? 3 score comebacks in Baltimore against Miami at home. 3 score comeback win, Miami against Baltimore home. Oh, it was a fluke. Well, it was a fluke. It happened again. It happened again in the very next game. Arizona was down 20-0 on the road. 20-0. and came back and beat. They came back and beat that Raider team with all those weapons here. But young coaches and players, Bill Belichick, this is why he continued to be aggressive. He talked about let me go to part 2. Make sure. I wrote this at 5 o'clock in the morning, by the way, because I knew I had to go on early. But he always reminded people, particularly in 2007 when they were blowing teams out of the water with the Patriots, they went undefeated during the regular season, that in 1993, the 92-93 Bills and Oilers game, Pickles, it was a 32-point margin against Houston. There was a 32 Houston Oilers then in 1993 had a 32-point lead. In the NFL, that is essentially you need 5 touchdowns to win. You need 5 touchdowns to win. You need, okay? Frank Reich was the quarterback. And the old adage is you play to the whistle. You play to the whistle, okay? So, I looked at that game and I thought to myself, all this talk about Lamar Jackson's contract, he's a great fantasy player. I mean, I want to say he had over 100 yards rushing. He was the leading rusher in that game, mind you. He was the leading rusher in that game, and he had like 3 touchdowns. But when push came to shove, and he had to make throws down the stretch, when the Dolphins knew he was going to throw the ball, mind you, their second corner's out. Byron Jones is going to be out a few more games. They got Xavier Howard back there, but that's one player. When they knew he had to throw, he could not make that throw. So this is what you're going to get out of Lamar Jackson going forward. Okay? Now, as far as Tua, 6 touchdowns, an insane number there. If you ask me, in playoff situations, which one would you rather have? You want to have the guy who can make the throws, and Tua made the throws. His problem is staying healthy, and continuing to simply stay healthy and elude the pass rush and getting himself hurt because he's a fragile player. He was hurt last year. He was hurt his rookie year, I want to say. He was hurt his last year at Alabama. Okay, but so that is one of the reasons why Ravens haven't gave him a lot of money. That's why he hasn't maxed out what Deshaun Watson is. But I understand that this is not fantasy football. This is real football, okay? And you're not going to win a Super Bowl with this kind of guy at quarterback. You're not going to. How do you think the Ravens are going to look when they have to pay him $45 million? They're paying him $23 million, which is still a bargain on his 5th-year option. He's playing on no contract this year. Okay, we have to look at it from that perspective. From another perspective, is he's must-see TV in the as far as the fans' perspective. I had him in fantasy. Had a great day in fantasy. You got to look at it from that perspective. And he's going to sell a lot of jerseys. A lot of kids are going to like Lamar Jackson. I understand from a money-making perspective. But if you're clearly in the mode to win games and win championships, that's not going to happen with Lamar Jackson. It's great. I mean, great at times he looked at day. But this, I go against all those quarterback ratings and all that. When you need to make a throw, he can't make the throw. When you need to make a throw, he can't make the throw. He has won one playoff game against a Tennessee team with a bad pass rush, only to get hurt the next game. That was the year before last. He was hurt last year. Okay? What makes you think he's going to be healthy this year? What makes you think he's playing a younger quarterback, by the way, who lit him up? They didn't light him up, he lit that team up. And there's a possibility and I'm thinking they're probably going to, if and not when, they sign to a $240 to $262 million guaranteed contract, and you're paying Lamar Jackson $40+ million a year. When you're paying him $40+ million a year, and you're not getting to you're maybe getting to the playoffs and getting put out in the first round. If you go to the playoffs, Deshaun Watson's going to be back next week. And throw Cleveland in there. That's another thing I said. Be careful of the team that was humiliated the week before. Be careful of the team that was humiliated the week before. The Cleveland Browns and Sid Rosenberg, WABC, WFAN. I'm sure guys like Carlos, they're down on the Jets. They're taking big dumps on the Jets. They're pounding the Jets. Robert Salah doesn't deserve to be head coach. Now, Jack Hirsch, boxing writer, he's a New York native. He thinks that they're okay, but he's already criticizing Robert Salah, saying that he shouldn't be talking about proving people wrong and all this stuff, and getting combative about his criticism, knowing that's part of the game. But my point is, they were humiliated. They came back and won because it's a passing game, and for small moments, not all the time. I'm not a Joe Flacco guy now, trust me. But the better passer is going to prevail. More often than not, when the money's online, when you get that hardware. By the way, I'm going to have Jim Jeffcoat on tomorrow. I'm going to have former Dallas Cowboy Jim Jeffcoat. And here's Pickles. He says, winning cures all problems. Yeah, the Ravens defense lost the game. And I'll tell you this, it's eventually going to be coming down to John Harbaugh getting fired. I think Harbaugh will get fired before Lamar runs through this contract. And it's going to be because Jackson, in the big games, when they're down, can't make those throws. And also, they're not bringing in enough pass rushers. As good as now they'll come back and play next week because that was embarrassing. That was embarrassing by the Ravens. That was an historical comeback. I get it. But when it come right down to it, he had a chance to go back down the field and score. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And they need pass rushers. They need pass rushers on that team. They're playing too much zone back there. And I think that guys like Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, 2 400-meter guys. I mean, these guys look like world-class Olympic-style athletes out there. And my thing is, I would rather play man and get beat bad once than play zone and let him run through that zone like a hot knife through butter. And that's what it looked like. They've already went through a couple of defensive coordinators because they've gotten torched over the last few years by guys like Jamar Chase. So the Ravens got some issues, and I've liked the way they've been built over the years. I've liked the way they build their defense. I liked how they go out their offensive line. And I just don't like the fact that they kept Lamar. I would have moved off Jackson, personally. I know he had a great game. The defense did let him down, but he can't make the throws down the stretch, and that's one big I told you so. As far as Tua, another I told you so. I said you've got former offensive coordinator. You got former offensive coordinator for the 49ers. Man, this guy looks like he's like a college grad. You know, it's like he's in grad class. McDaniel, whatever his name is, coming over from the 49ers. And you got all that speed there with Waddle and Tyreek Hill and a guy that is pretty accurate when he's healthy and he has just a little bit of time. And Tua, which he had a career day and everything. want to see if I got that. I think I screenshotted his numbers, but I'm not sure. I screenshotted so much, guys, that I could not get everything in here. But I know he had 6 touchdowns and he had like 140 something quarterback rating, I want to say. Even Joe Flacco had a great game. And that just goes to show you guys that you're simply going to it is coming down to, if this is a passing lead, you have to emulate the running game, or simulate the running game the best you can. You cannot abandon the running game. Okay, you simply cannot abandon the running game every NFL game. Okay, thank you. All right. So, by the way, Gabriel Davis will not play in this game. So, Buffalo, you better be careful. Tennessee may come back and beat you in a fierce comeback. But going back to Miami. Now, Miami, I said they'll look great the first 4 or 5 weeks. I didn't think they would look this good in Baltimore. But I think that will get adjusted. Teams will figure out the schemes here and how to guard these 2 players, Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, with their speed. Both of them had over 100 yards and a certain amount of catches. I want to say it was over 7. So that was a record as well. Okay. So that was a record as well. It was one of those crazy September type of games where things can get out of hand, where people start talking like the game is too much offensive oriented. We had a 45-50 type of game about 4 or 5 years ago between the Chiefs and the Rams, and people were talking about that same Super Bowl. I think it was in 2018. That same Super Bowl. It was a 13-3 Patriots win over the Rams. So that was just one of those early September. Teams don't have they don't have an idea of what you're doing. But my thing is, they're going to come back down to earth. I think the Patriots will beat them. I think the Patriots will beat them when they play, and the Patriots won, as I predicted. They went up to Pittsburgh and won that game. Not to poo-poo it, but I'm here to have perspective after the smoke clears. No league is safe. Don't mail in your game plan and everything. You look at the Rams, almost lost their game. You know, I lost the point spread there. I had Rams minus 10 on that particular game. And Brian asked, who are you taking tonight? I think the Eagles. I don't like, and that's another thing. That's 2 quarterbacks that people are still looking for Kirk Cousins to do something big. You know, Green Bay, humiliated by Minnesota, came back, won by 17, I want to say. Was it 27? Won by 17 plus last night, 27-10, I want to say. But I like the Eagles. Don't like either one of those quarterbacks. People's going to be real high on Hurts. I just like the Eagles because they're at home. I like their offensive line. I like their defensive secondary. I think that's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a close game. Could go the other way. Quite frankly, like to see it go the other way. A friend of mine in Northeast Streaming Sports, we'd like to see Jamie Paggs, who will probably be there, Philly sports guy. I like to see him get humbled another week, but I think that I think the Eagles will probably win that at home. And Cousins in prime time, yeah, he's not good on the road. Pickle says he's not good on the road, and he's just not a very good primetime player. He's won in primetime recently, but he's simply not a very good primetime player. And I don't think Jefferson's going to have the night he did last night. If he did, there's got to be an issue with the defensive coordinator. Now, Jamie said that he didn't. Village Sports Guy said he doesn't like this coordinator giving up 30 points like that. Okay, so that's my take on this. Okay, Dallas. Dallas is not the team, and I'm gonna bring this up tomorrow. By the way, former Dallas Cowboy coach and player Jim Jeffcoat played from '83, I want to say, till '94 with the Cowboys. But he also came back and coached from '98 to 2004 as a defensive line coach. He won 2 Super Bowls. Jimmy Johnson. He said he played for Parcells too. And I want to say he may have coached with Parcells back in the early 2000s. I'll ask him about all that. He will be on tomorrow, 7 p.m. Central Time. We got everything taken care of as far as sending the link and everything. So I'm going to have former Dallas Cowboy Jim Jeffcoat on tomorrow, 7 p.m. Central Time. Okay, so Dallas, again, a team that was humiliated on prime time, 16-3. A lot of criticisms about Mike McCarthy, Dak Prescott's injury, guys like Stephen A. Smith mocking them on national TV, saying all that. And I went back and looked at their defense because Skip Bayless did make a good point. He said, Zeke Elliott had over 5 yards of carry in that game. And then I went back and looked at their defense. Dallas had 2 sacks, 1 interception, 6 tackles for loss against Tampa in week 1. That is tackling behind the line of scrimmage. That means that Dan Quinn has these guys so in tune. Michael Parsons could be another defensive player of the year, could win it this year. And that secondary, Vander Esch, they seem better now than they did then. So they had and plus they were getting 5 yards of carry. And I was thinking to myself, Cincinnati still coming off that Super Bowl hangover. Again, teams that lose the Super Bowl since the salary cap era, not named New England. Think about this. Since 1994, only team that's lost the Super Bowl to even get back to the Super Bowl has been the New England Patriots. Folks, that is 30 to 28 years. That's a lot of data right there. So I don't have Cincinnati going back to Super Bowl. I think they'll still come back and potentially win the AFC North. The whole AFC North lost yesterday. So anyways, Dallas gets 2 sacks, 1 interception, 6 tackles for loss against the most efficient quarterback in the history of the game. Ran over 5 yards of carry. Sunday, with a improved offensive line, Dallas had 6 sacks, 8 tackles for loss against the Cincinnati Bengal team. This Dan Quinn guy, his defense are getting better. They are getting better. They are better this year than they were last year. Okay. And you're getting a lot of no-name players starting to make plays for this team. And let me mind you that Atlanta defense got worse every year that Dan Quinn took over. They started off up top. You say, well, maybe they're paying Matt Ryan too much, or they were paying who. That is true. But my thing is, be careful. Other NFL owners, now I follow Woody Johnson. I hope he got my message last week. Be patient. For one thing, the Jets won. But be patient with these really sharp coordinators who were dreadful as head coaches. Robert, he got to the Super Bowl. Yeah, the first year. And then the Falcons started going down. And now they're just getting off all the mess, okay? But you look at guys going back to coaches like Dick LeBeau from the great Pittsburgh Steelers defense, coached them in the 90s, came back in the early 2000s, won a Super Bowl with Jerome Bettis, of course, Ben Roethlisberger, coached under Bill Cowher. Man, he took over Cincinnati for 2 years, and he couldn't even get through 2 years as a head coach. they were a total disaster. TJ Hushmanzada got that right the first time. Great fantasy player, Corey. TJ, about 15 years ago, he was the man. Him and Chad Johnson. But, them two guys went to college together. I digress. But he says, man, Dick would just let us do anything we wanted to do. We didn't hardly have any coach, Dick LeBeau. He's a great guy. And I look back, and I thought, yeah, he only lasted 2 years. You were a total train wreck under Dick LeBeau. No structure. It took Marvin Lewis a lot of time to get you guys squared away. But Dick LeBeau is sharp as a tack. He coached all the way up in his 80s. And one of the most consistent coaches at stopping that run and getting to the quarterback I've ever seen. Now, he's gotten roasted a couple times. Nobody's perfect. But Dick LeBeau, terrible head coach, but an elite defensive coordinator. And, you think about guys like Wade Phillips. Wade Phillips, man, that Charger defense was airtight in the early 2000s. Probably should have got to the Super Bowl in 2006 when they won 14 games. But his teams, they'll play well early as a head coach. And then they'll go down, 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 there because they lack that skill of managing the coaches. They're too much involved in their side of the ball. And by the way, their side of the ball usually doesn't do as well. The defense doesn't do as well, even if you have a head coach as a defensive coordinator, a former defense that is your head coach. Now, I'm not saying that it wouldn't do as well as the other coach of his offensive mind. I'm saying it wouldn't do as well as these coaches that were coaching their defense. So he bounces around. He coached at Buffalo. They were okay, but they started going downhill. Dallas, okay, but started going downhill. He does really good the first year when he took over Parcells players. Parcells still had his hand on that early 2000s team. And then when Wade Phillips started, and that thing just got a little bit softer, and then of course he had to move off of Wade Phillips, Jones there, Jerry Jones, and like I said, guys like Wade Phillips, Dick LeBeau, great coordinators, excellent coordinators, not so much, and I think that's the same with Dan Quinn because I'm already starting to hear about Dan Quinn. So this Dallas team. Defense may be better than the last year, and their running game is what they need to concentrate on. And people get caught up, and I know this is Jerry Jones too. I think he listens, and he goes on radio shows. He listens to a lot of radio shows. He loves what I do. It's stuff like what I'm doing, a program like this. And he wants to lead SportsCenter. He's very vain, very narcissistic guy. And all that passing, and man, they blown out this good Eagles team last year, 40-something points. And then when they went to a really tough, hard, fundamentally sound 49er team or a hungry Raider team, and they get beat. Denver went in there flat-footed against Denver last year and blown out at home, get booed at home. And because they give up on the run real easy and they want to pass and look good. And that's a young offensive coordinator in Keelan Moore there. But this team, they only got 100 yards rushing, but they had 26 attempts yesterday. Okay. This was a monumental upset. I'm surprised that because you got a Super Bowl team coming off a loss. They get their other receiver back. They get Higgins back in Cincinnati. They get Higgins back at Cincinnati. So they got these three receivers there, upgraded offensive line. You're with Cooper Rush at quarterback. You've got some offensive line missing of your own from the beginning of training camp, and they win. They stuck with the running game. And this Cooper Rush guy, by the way, he is 2-0. And I think what it is everybody else steps up. They don't have that Dallas Cowboy country club atmosphere mentality. They got humiliated last week. They got heavily criticized last week. And They came in there ready to play, and they knew they had a less of a quarterback in this Cooper Rush guy, and they ran the ball effectively. They had time of possession edge most of the game. They had time of possession edge most of the game until the fourth quarter, and they got all these sacks on Joe Burrow. This guy, over a 90-something quarterback rating. Cooper Rush. Now, mind you, Cooper Rush also won against a good borderline on the road, by the way, Minnesota Vikings team last year. This guy's 28 years old, hasn't got that many starts. He's been with this team for quite some time. I'll say it this way. If they keep winning, and they got to go play the Rams in a few weeks, the Rams were the Rams beat them. Remember, the Rams won the Super Bowl last year. Opening week, the Rams beat them like 20-17 last year. If they go on the road and beat the Rams, I'm just thinking to myself that possibly you just keep this guy in there just to keep everybody, even after Dak Prescott gets healthy. That's a hot take. Hey, look, the bottom line is win. Win games. Win games. Mike McCarthy is on the hot seat. Jerry Jones, listen to my program. Don't buy the Dan Quinn hype. Keep Dan Quinn where he's at. Make him the highest paid defensive coordinator. You may have a better defense this year than you got last year. Make Zeke Elliott earn his money, which he has somewhat, in air quotes. Earn that $18 million a year you're paying him. And Tony Pollard, give them guys the football to help you. And any great former offensive lineman will say this. The best way to get past a bad offensive line is just run. Run till the dad takes the T-Bird away, like the song said for the Beach Boys. Now, of course, I know you can't run the whole game, but they did exactly what I said they should do. And the flip side is Joe Burrow. They ran 19 times with Joe Mixon at running back on Cincinnati. And Burrow, even though he admitted it, he says, I'm trying to get more and step into more throws, getting bigger plays and what have you. He's not checking the ball down. I want to say one attempt to Samaje Perine. He's their third down running back where Burrow would check down to him. He needs a throw like a Patrick Mahomes, like a Josh Allen. He needs a check. And kudos to Mahomes, by the way. That's what he's doing. That's the reason why they're 2-0. I don't think he's got an interception. Checking the ball down, audible to a run. Everything can't be a big home run, Jamar Chase, Sports Center next type of play. Everything can't be that. He's still a young quarterback. He was in his second year last year. He's got a very young head coach who's on the verge of being fired, except for this breakthrough with Joe Burrow. But he is stepping, and then you say, well, it's the offense. No, he's hanging on to the ball too long. He is stepping right into these sacks. Let me look at some of my. So that is my big issue with that. But Dallas, yeah, if Cooper Rush continues to play like this, he's not setting the world on fire, but the team around him is playing better. Even after Dak's healthy, I don't care what you're paying Dak. You want to stay with the hot hand. Dak knows that team. He knows the offense. He's got guaranteed money. His pride's not now. This is going to be easier said than done, but this team has been humiliated so much over the last year and a half after playing so well. It's worth a try. It is worth a try. And I'll bring that up with Jim tomorrow. But as far as Burrow, Burrow is simply got to get rid of the football and take what the defense get him. Well, Robert, you're saying a bunch of cliches. Well, they're not listening. You're not listening. So listen, son, we know you want to make the big play. So did Dan Marino. So did Dan Marino go to the Super Bowl in his second year. How many rings does Dan Marino have? My point exactly. My point exactly. Okay. Was a well of a fight there. Somewhat of a. I thought there was going to be a lot of. Could you please get Dustin Knox get the ball? Great tight end. Yeah. Dustin Knox. Are you talking about Brian? Is that the guy from Dawson? I know there's a Dawson Knox for Buffalo. By the way, he's from Brentwood, Tennessee. Not about 15, 20 minutes from me. Dawson Knox will have a good game tonight. I think that's who it is. Run the ball. Clock control. Yeah. They're going to have to run the ball. And that's the thing. The Raiders, speaking, let's just, actually, you know what? Let me come back. Check that. Let's go to the Saints. By the way, let me say this. As good as Dallas defense is playing, Tampa's playing that much better. Because it's not Brady right now. And Brady would admit it's not him. It's that defense. And I want to say this is, geez, if I could get up here. I've got so much stuff screenshotted here because I'm doing the show at this early time that, yeah, Mike Evans suspension. Greg Olman, despite, what did he say? This defense has gotten 10 points. And they're the best defense in the league right now. They've got about 13 points on the road in 2022. Think about that for a second. The Tampa Bay Bucks have gave up 13 points on the road in 2 games in this modern high-flying era. That's one of the best starts in the history of the game. They haven't even played their home opener yet. But that being said, I want to say there were 6 turnovers. There was something like 6 turnovers in this game. 2 games. This is Greg Oldman. This guy is from The Athletic, and he covers the Tampa Bay Bucks. Good guy. Always gets back. I may try to bring him on the program. Bucks have the league's best scoring defense right now, allowed 6.5 points per game, 5th in total defense, 4th on third down, tied for second in takeaways. They're top 5 in all 4 categories. That's what I said. I said that Todd Bowles will have this defense playing good early on. They're going to be sharp as attack, and they have been, man. That secondary has grown into their roles. They're flying around the middle of the field. They cause a lot of turnovers. Now, that being said, Tampa gave them that game. The Saints gave them that game. 3 interceptions and 2 fumbles. Winston had 3. And like I said, when we were talking about this game, I thought the Saints would win because they had offensive line injuries and they ran the ball pretty well against the Saints too. Okay. But they don't have a quarterback. They don't have a quarterback. Winston's not the quarterback. They're going to have a decent team, but not a great team. I said they're going to win 6 to 7 games, and they're going to have to make a move to get a quarterback. And I don't know how they're going to make that move because they're going to win 6 to 7 games to get a quarterback. But Winston's not that guy. He's not that guy. He was not that guy coming in. He's a turnover machine, man, after this fight. And by the way, the fight was because Tampa got stopped again. It was frustrated. A lot of frustration with Brady. He was really frustrating, cursing on the sideline. You could see it. Mike Evans, although I think maybe Lattimore may have incited this. They got beef. Lattimore Marshawn Lattimore and Marshawn Lattimore and Mike Evans have a feud going back to the 2017 where Mike Evans got suspended for hitting him then. For those of you watching the hit show Cobra Kai, this is Miguel and Robbie right here. Okay? Because you haven't seen the news, Mike Evans suspended today. He's suspended today. And nobody else is suspended for this, so I don't understand this. But Marshawn Lattimore hit the ground running. He's an undersized guy, but he's a feisty little corner, Pro Bowl level cornerback. And I'll say this, a lot of the best cornerbacks who've ever played this game have had scuffles. Deion Sanders, Corey, Brian, 1994, first game back with the Atlanta Falcons as a San Francisco 49ers player. They get into a scuffle there. You guys recall that? And all this spilled over. Yeah, Andre Rison and Deion went on to win the Super Bowl that year. You know, Deion went on to win the Super Bowl. Thank you, Stephen. Cortland Sutton, Brian, Pickles, Stephen, Corey, Cortland Sutton, former 7th round pick, Tennessee Titans. Great story there. Guy makes the Pro Bowl. Him and Andre Johnson got into a scuffle. He's pushing. Andre Johnson, former Houston Texan, grabs his helmet off and punches him in the face. And he is suspended 1 game for that. Now, in the NBA, you get suspended. Major League Baseball, NBA, you're getting suspended 4, 5, 6 games for that stuff. NFL, 1 game. 1 game. Let's go with probably the best cornerback in the game right now, Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey, when he was with the Jacksonville Jaguars, AJ Green body slammed this guy in the middle of the field. Because your best corners, they get up under the shirt of these receivers. They're physical. They get into it, and the receivers are tired of it. They don't want to be manhandled like that. Well, that in some cases, that's what you got to do. Now, I don't remember Revis doing that, and quite frankly, I don't think Deion ever got in any other fights. I think that was just probably a lot of trash talking as Deion signed with the new team. He went to the 49ers, and it just spilled overboard. But some of your best corners are going to get into it. This is the second incident here where Evans got suspended. They play again in November. I want to say on Monday Night Football, and it is going to be a good one. This will be at Tampa here on Monday Night Football. Okay, so that's going to be a storyline leading into that game. Let me see. Here it is. That will be on, let's see, when are they playing these guys? Yeah, that will be after their bye week. That's going to be interesting. That is really going to be an interesting little set. I think both guys are probably going to be on their best behavior because they don't want to lose any more money. But that's going to be a storyline to follow. Tampa Bay is only going to get better. They got a really good shot at the Super Bowl. The offense is going to get better. The offensive line is going to get healthy. Eventually, they're going to get Chris Godwin back. Mike Evans will be back. He's going to be suspended. He's appealing it. He will be back. That was the one game I thought that the Saints could win. But, man, when you've got a guy like Winston in there, it's just not going to happen. Revis and Champ Bailey were pretty clean. Yeah, Revis and Champ Bailey, 2 of my favorites. Revis is the best cornerback of his era. Revis, for somebody who played for money years ago, and a website called Head to Head, used to play with my dad. It was kind of like before DraftKings. I would look to see I would not take these top receivers against Revis. I wouldn't do it. He shut down Reggie Wayne in the playoff game with Peyton Manning throwing the ball. He had like one catch for like 2 yards, and that was at the line of scrimmage. He's the best of his era. The best I've ever seen is probably Dion. You want to look at guys like Darrell Green from Washington going back 25 more years. Those are elite corners. Ty Law and his heyday, elite corners. And usually there's some scuffles, but not like this. This is escalated. The ones I just talked about where Jalen Ramsey get body slammed by AJ Green, and Green didn't have a good game either that game. He got under Merton Hanks. Yeah, Merton Hanks. Brian says Merton Hanks. Now, Merton Hanks, I want to say that he was the guy with the turkey neck. I think it was either him or J.J. Stokes that Terrell Owens spit in his face. It was one of those two guys that Terrell Owens, when he went to Dallas, remember, he was a former 49er. So it's really, and Pickles goes back to the 70s, Lester Hayes, Mike Haynes. These are great cornerbacks. And cornerback is if I'm building a team, it is pass rusher, cornerback. I was arguing with a guy at work today, okay? Pass rusher, cornerback. Those safeties, I'm passing up on safeties as far as giving second contracts. Wide receivers, running backs, maybe one wide receiver, and that's probably the second wide receiver. I'm not paying wide receivers top money when the draft is putting them out every year. Those guys can walk. Offensive linemen that are productive, they get second contracts. And, of course, your quarterback gets second contracts. But everybody else, you can walk. They can walk. Safeties can walk. Linebackers, you can get linebackers in the draft. But those cornerbacks and pass rushers, we saw that. I don't care how good you are. You have a really good pass rush, you're not going to be able to do anything. Brady can't do anything with a really good pass rush. If you got a quarterback running backwards, bad things are going to happen because you know what? Because then the safeties move in, and he's often throwing off his back foot. He's either throwing it away or throwing an interception. Okay, blessing in disguise. Good transition, Brian. Good transition. Okay, so Trey Lance hurts his ankle. So you're coming out of a rain game. It starts to rain again in San Francisco. You're playing a team that will probably get the number 1 pick. So, Robert, it's only been 2 games. Seattle, very good chance to get they won their first game. I get it. Jacksonville won their first game. Trevor Lawrence. They lost every game. Tennessee 7 years ago went to Kansas City in 2015, beat Kansas City in Kansas City, only to have their coach fired that year and get the number 1 pick. Okay. Seattle's going to – so Seattle plays Monday night. Jamal Adams, best defensive player, out for the season. Other second-best defensive player was released in the offseason for cap casualty, and he's picked up by the Rams. Why are you calling a running play with the quarterback up the middle? Because they don't believe in his passing game. Steve Young says he don't like the way he runs. We talked about Mike Barnes saying he don't like the way this guy throws. He has fundamental issues. There were reports out of camp that Lance was having problems picking up. Why do you think Jimmy Garoppolo purposely held off on that surgery? Did he really want to stay in San Francisco that bad? Or is Jimmy Garoppolo saying, man, this kid is just not getting it? You know, you give up 3 first-round picks. By the way, I know that the Bears didn't do much last night, but I like Justin Fields' pocket presence better than Trey Lance. I like Mac Jones' pocket presence better than Trey Lance. 2 guys drafted after Trey Lance. Trey Lance is very strong, really athletic, but there was report, and it hasn't really been debunked, that he was at a strip club. That is not what you want out of your quarterback. No big deal if you're a corner, but that can be a problem too. Ask Pat Jones. No good thing happens after midnight. But in the strip club after that loss to the Bears, he was bummed out at the strip club. There was a report about that earlier in the week. A video surfaced of him. Some saying maybe it was earlier. That being said, I told you all this last week. I'm telling you now. I mentioned on the Mac and Jack and Jim Jeffcoat show. You shouldn't do that. People say, well, you're going to mess. You're going to call it divide the locker room. Feelings go. No, when you have a Super Bowl roster, I picked them to go to the Super Bowl. I thought the light was going to go off for them. That being said, this guy's having a bad game against another bad team. You're going to have to bench him and put Garoppolo in or exaggerate an injury. Well, now he's got his surgery, and this picture I put out on Twitter, you could not – this is what Trey Lance said. He said, I truly appreciate all the messages and prayers. Surgery was a success, and I'm ready to attack this rehab process. We will never understand why, but I trust – this is what Lance says, but I trust it's all part of his plan. I will be back and better than ever. And he's got a peace sign up there. Peace to the pressure is what that looks like to me. You know, I took the point. Seattle's not good. The only reason. Yeah, took the only reason I lost because he broke his ankle. Yeah, well, I took him. Well, he broke his ankle, but I think I would have been. I mean, this. You cannot lose to Seattle, man. I mean, you just can't. I think that they were contemplating that. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. I'm not calling him a bust. I want to give him a little bit more time. He's still on a rookie contract. He'll be in year 3 next year. Maybe the light bulb goes off then. Usually it goes from year 1 to year 2. Patrick Mahomes, he set out year 1. Reports were different. This guy's throwing ropes in practice. The ball zips out of his hands. He's making his reads, and he's still rough around the edges. We saw his first game as a starter get the Chargers, and he tore the Chargers up. And then the world saw Patrick Mahomes. So I think it's a blessing in disguise. Let him. I think maybe the pressure. Maybe he was in the strip club. Maybe the pressure's getting to him. Let Garoppolo take over this team and see what happens. Yeah, and they went on them blown out Seattle. They definitely covered. One of the few teams that did cover last week in the points. Okay. That's a controversial opinion, but I'm going to tell you what. There's a big sign of relief from Kyle Shanahan this morning. And judging by that picture, Brian, it's on my Twitter. You follow me on Twitter. He looks relieved. Lance looks relieved. I think the locker room looks relieved because it was probably going to get intense in there. So, okay. Rob Parker from Fox Sports is already calling for Josh McDaniels' job with the Raiders. Speaking of blown leads, they're up home, up 20-0. Now, he was 33 when he took that job at Denver in 2009. Got off to a 6-0 lead one year. Totally fell apart as the season went along. We know about the Jay Cutler situation. That's all, water under the bridge or whatever you want to call it. But in halftime, at home, you score 3 points with Devontae Adams, with a more than capable and team-friendly contract. Derek Carr got one of the better tight ends in the game. Derek Waller, I want to say he just signed an extension. You got Josh Jacobs and a above average to decent offensive line. Decent. And you can't hold a 20-0 lead. Then I read that Kyler Murray was assaulted by a fan outside the game. That's a different story. And I made a note, Kyler Murray had 5 to 6 seconds to throw in that game. And I tell you what, it's early. This team's 0-2. I expect the Titans to lose to Buffalo tonight. Tennessee's going to be 0-2. The Raiders are already 0-2. The Raiders got to come to Nashville next week. That is going to be a must-win. That is going to be, and the Raiders go 0-3. the criticisms for McDaniels is only going to get even louder. Because remember, this team made the playoffs last year. And Derek Carr actually made the statement that I won't play for any other coach but this guy. Now, he come off of that after they gave him an extension. I think maybe Josh McDaniels, they called him. They smoothed things over. It's still very early, but that is something to think about. When you give up that kind of lead, you got Max Crosby, by the way, a better pass rusher there. Max Crosby's pretty good. That dude is pretty good. And I think they picked up Chandler Jones out of Arizona, who's playing his old team. And they still gave up that kind of lead. Now, I want to commend, he got out-coached by Cliff Kingsbury in the second half. He got out-coached by Cliff Kingsbury. That's all. I mean, what else can you say? And he's an offensive coach. That's right, Brian. And he's an offensive coach in your own backyard. He said, what about this other Daniels guy and John Harbaugh? Well, I'm saying after Lamar gets this contract, John Harbaugh may be former Baltimore Ravens head coach. And McDaniels may be back in New England, and I'm sure Bill Belichick would appreciate it here in another year or two or three. It may be 3 because I think that Mark Davis still may be paying back John Gruden and his contract. But I'll say this. It's something I'm not calling for the guy to get fired, but and mind you, Ryan, that they were down 3 receivers. Arizona was down 3 receivers in that game. DeAndre Hopkins is suspended because of PEDs. Their second-year sensation, Rondale Moore, was out, injured. This Isabella guy, he was a receiver. He was out. They had Hollywood Brown. They had Zach Ertz. They came back and won. And you know why the main reason they won? Because they found a way to run the football. They found the way to run the football. Like I've been saying, run the football. Stop giving those running backs the football out of the shotgun when your running back has no momentum. What they started doing, they were not running a read option. They were running the old-fashioned option. Just quarterback run option. Now, that's dangerous. If you get in the habit of doing that all the time, your quarterback's going to get blasted because he becomes a runner. He's not protected by the NFL rules on quarterback. Okay? But it was a big win. I had my narrative written to hammer Kingsbury and Murray. Now Murray's been assaulted by a fan. There was a report out about that. And Cliff Kingsbury outcoaches Josh McDaniels. Comes back 20-0 on the road with 3 receivers out. Three starting receivers out. What are you going to do about that? You know? Wow. You know, guys, I actually thought, and all these hot takes in here, Brian, I'm going to have to turn the air down a little bit more with these hot takes in here. Let's see. I know he's Belichick, but if the season doesn't go as planned, we have to start. And that's true. That is true because, for one thing, they made the playoffs last year. They spent a lot of money. And Green Bay wins. They're 0-2. Like I said, I told you all this is going to happen. I said they're going to sell a lot of tickets because of Adams. He's going to be a great fantasy player, and they're not going to make the playoffs. Like Jim Moore Sr. said, playoffs? Playoffs? I'm trying to win a game. And Tennessee is going to be ticked off come next Sunday. They're going to probably be 0-2. And they're going to have to play the Raiders here, and somebody's got to win. And the loser, Tennessee goes 0-3. Well, don't pay a guy like don't pay Ryan Tannehill $36 million in guaranteed money. And I talked to a guy at work today, and he was saying maybe the Titans need to look at John Robertson. And he started talking about not signing players, and I thought, well, that's discussion for a different day. Tomorrow we'll have Jim Jeffcoat on, former Dallas coach and player, two-time Super Bowl winning player and coach Jim Jeffcoat. I'm going to ask him about what about Cooper Rush? Should this team be a running team, and how do you deal with losing your starting quarterback as a player? How do you deal with that as a coach? I'm not going to put words in his mouth. I want to see what Jim has to say about that. And, yeah, I want to see that dome. I haven't read that Pickle says they have a new dome. I want to see that. If they do get a dome, that will up Tennessee's chances of getting a Super Bowl here. Drive in Nashville, the city has blown up. It is driving me crazy because I have to drive in it. Not as irritated as I was before, because normally I'm driving till 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, doing 12 and a half hours. But that will be able to put a Super Bowl here. That would be pretty cool. I wish Tennessee could keep an open stadium because it's pretty warm here in the South, but that would help them during the wintertime if they wanted to put a Super Bowl here. They've already had a successful, very successful NFL draft. So if you guys like the show, share the show. You can have all the people from LA left. They could take more. Yeah, and we got a bunch of California license plates here, Brian. Trust me, I see them everywhere. California, New York, New Jersey. I see them all over the place, man. Even Florida. I just want to talk about moving to Florida at one point. I can see more Florida tags up here. I don't know. But anyways, guys, we'll cover the rest of the games tomorrow. The big deal, 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Jim Jeffcoat to start the program off. Have a good evening, everybody. I will see you tomorrow, normal time, 7 p.m. Central Time here on Sports Scope.